Rainboy77, Linus, welcome in. Lynn, welcome in. How are you? Fire, Michael, Daddy Girl, CIA. Welcome in, everybody. Hope you guys are all doing well. It's Friday night, which means you're going to be live with me, 7 p.m. Eastern, Mr. Merca, the Beard of Truth, Jason Lyon. Hope you guys have enjoyed your week. We've got a lot of things that need to be covered. A lot of things have been happening. I feel like for whatever reason, as we get further into the weeks, every week, right? The Wednesdays, especially the Thursdays and then the Fridays. The Fridays are just an explosion of news stories. Everyone is just waiting for the last second. And once that last second comes in, they're like, we have a story for the rest of the week. So we're going to go through and knock out all this. Who is this governor? Is he mixed up with the abortion story? Yes, this governor is mixed up with the abortion story, and because of his stance, it's made a lot of big hubbub. So it's going to be a great time. We're going to break all this stuff down. Thank you guys all for joining in. Give me one moment, please, while I do share this out. But yes, we will get into Ralph, little Ralphie, and in all of that entire debacle. But we're not only going to talk about him and the racism that he projected out back in medical school. We're also going to be talking a little bit about civil asset forfeiture because South Carolina was found out that in the last 3 years, $17 million. I think it's 17. It might be more than that. Was it more? 17 million. Yeah, $17 million in 3 years collected through civil asset forfeiture. That's a much needed discussion. Welcome in Mr. Shane Sweeney himself, Mr. Big LP. The governor's story in college yearbook is getting huge attention. Yes, absolutely it is, and it is well worth this attention because we get to see the blatant hypocrisy that is being projected by the left because it's funny, right? So not only did it involve something that was happening in school for a yearbook purpose, not only was it something racist from long ago, but it also involved beer. So it's got the Kavanaugh side of things, and it's got oh geez, his name is eluding me, but I think it was even there in the same, in his race from 2018, it was even that race that they were trying to go after somebody for things that happened in the way back. And so it hits them with the racism thing. If you're racist before, you're racist now, and then this is all just coming together, and it's just absolutely beautiful. So to give you guys a little bit more insight on the Ralph Northam and this entire debacle, as it is much needed to be torn apart and to be shredded in order to show that there is hypocrisy on the left, that there is a huge fundamental issue with this. Ralph Northam was already in trouble. So if we go back to early in this week, we had one of the representatives there in the state district, or in the Virginia State House, that was pushing out a bill. Her name was Tran, not to be confused with trans. But Tran was pushing out a bill in order to say, look, it is up to the physicians and the mother's decision on when a baby, when a life can be ended during the times of abortion. And it became wildly known across the nation when she was being asked about this bill. And her bill, even when the mother is dilating, even when the baby is ready to come through the mother's canal, the bill that Tran was pushing and advocating for would allow for a doctor to come in, shred apart the baby, tear it limb from limb, crush the skull, and dismember and take apart the baby if that's what was determined to be needed for not only the physical safety of the mother, but also the mental health of the safety. So what does mental health mean? Well, if she's going to be too stressed out during labor, which if you are a father, if you are a mother, you understand that putting a big old 10-pound bag of brown sugar through a little tiny slot is not exactly a kosher time, is not exactly a time where everyone's just lounging around having a good time. No, this is a high-stress situation where the body is undergoing something not only miraculous, but something that is so difficult for a lot of people to go through that you don't just say, you're going through a lot of stuff. If you decide, I don't want to do it anymore, just go ahead and dismember the baby. But this is what the bill would allow. So you have the mental health. So that could be if they're stressed out, if the financial health of the mother, if she feels like it's going to be too much at risk for her to have a child, that would be a justification to abort this baby up to the moment of it coming out. And where this controversy comes back to Ralph was that Ralph was even talking about, hey, look, if the child comes out and the abortion is unsuccessful, what we would do is we would make the baby comfortable, and then we can have a discussion with the parents on what we're going to do next. Now, as a doctor, you make this oath. You make the Hippocratic Oath. Not the hypocritical oath, but the Hippocratic Oath. And that oath is supposed to is supposed to say that the doctor is to do no harm. Now, oftentimes, most doctors would view that as taking an inactive or being inactive on this. Being inactive would be to do harm to others. So there is an action that must be taken in order to help provide something for said baby and to not go through and to provide medical treatment to help out these young, very young infants would be infanticide, right? It would be to be killing off babies, killing off infants. And so that's where his controversy came up. He stood and he said this, I think it was on Tuesday when he had said this, that he had basically said, look, we'll make it comfortable, we'll have a discussion with the parents. If it dies, it dies. Then following the next day, Wednesday, so if it was on Tuesday, then on Wednesday, he came out and he said, yeah, I still believe it. This is why the decision such as should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved. When we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother and with the consent of the physician. And so he's saying, look, it's not on to us to be able to protect life. It's not upon us to make sure that there's laws in place in order to protect people that could be killed out of convenience. And so he made that statement. And I think because of that is when people started digging through his past. And sure enough, they found it. They found exactly what they were looking for. They were digging through the trash and they found the gold. They found the piece of information that they needed in order to damn him. So while Mr. Ralph was sitting there in school, while he was sitting in school, let me find this. He had a picture in the yearbook. He had a picture or a page dedicated to him in the yearbook. And during this, he had a nice picture of himself. He had a picture of himself with his Corvette that he had refurbished. And then they had a picture of him standing there with another individual. Now, there's one individual that is standing in a full-fledged KKK with the white hood pulled over his head, and the other individual, which we believe is Ralph Northam, was an individual depicting blackface. So he's racist against black people and wants to hang them and lynch them and do everything else by being a member of the KKK, or he's making a mockery of them by utilizing blackface, which has been something that the Democrats as a whole have been denouncing, the left as a whole has been denouncing, and they've said that in the past, if you've done these things, then you are obviously a white supremacist, and you need to be taken out, and you need to be thrown out of into the trash, and let it be known that you are not welcome in our society. You are not welcome in our society if you've ever depicted blackface, if you've ever done anything that we view as racist today, regardless of how acceptable it was in the past. And so they set this standard, and we can talk about the merits of that standard, if it's good or not. But where this all goes wrong Where this all goes wrong was that their standard was, it doesn't matter if you apologize, it doesn't matter what you do. If you did this, it is reprehensible, and you cannot come back from it. So Governor Northam's statement came out and said, earlier today, a website published a photograph of me from my 1984 medical school yearbook in a costume that is clearly racist and offensive. I am deeply sorry for the decision I made to appear as I did in this photo, and for the hurt that decision caused then and now. This behavior is not keeping in with who I am today and the values I fought for throughout my career in the military, in medicine, and in public service. But I want this to be clear. I understand how this decision shakes Virginians' faith in that commitment. I recognize that it will take time and serious effort to heal the damage this conduct has caused. I am ready to do that important work. The first step is to offer my sincerest apology and to state my absolute commitment to living in the expectations Virginians set for me when they elected me to be their governor. So he came out and he gave what otherwise would have been a good apology, right? Hey, look, I messed up in the past. I'm deeply sorry. I hope that you guys will be able to find it in your hearts to forgive me. I denounce myself and everything else. Can we move on, right? In a civilized world, that may be enough, right? That may be enough. But the left has made a standard toward that we cannot be that civilized. But yet, nonetheless, we have people that are already saying, look, he apologized, let's just take him in and accept it. I do want to point out the wonderful tweet from Matt McDermott. If you guys don't know who he is, don't worry, not many people do. He's got like 100,000 followers, so he's got a better chance of knowing him than you do know me, but nonetheless. Tweeting from November 6th, 2017, he said, "This election is simple enough. Ed Gillespie is a racist. Ralph Northam is not a racist. Virginians deserve a governor who is not a racist. Seriously, we can't believe we have to ask people to sanely vote for a non-racist candidate, but here we are." These tweets aged so well, aged like fine wine. So we had a racist versus a racist by that standard. I can't believe that we have to worry about racist on both sides of the aisle. It's almost as if this is what I've been saying for a lot of people. Yes, there are racists on the Democratic side. There are racists on the Republican side. We need to actually go through and figure out who the racists are, who still espouse racism in their everyday life, who will use the state as a crutch, use it as a weapon to further their racism, and go after those people. But just to blindly say one side is racist and the other side is, they're completely invulnerable to the idea of being racist is just purely stuck on tribalism and is not in the pursuance of helping this out. Oh man, so it's really disheartening to see all this going down. But nonetheless, I'm sure that the left, the Democrats, and everyone else is going to forgive him on this and show their true hypocrisy on this. But coming from this, I think Ben Sasse has been making some news, and certainly this is for the betterment. So today, he gave a statement to National Review this afternoon in response to Northam's comments. Sasse is the author of a Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, which would impose penalties on physicians that refuse medical care to infants born alive in a botched abortion procedure. This is morally repugnant, Sasse said of Northam's comments. In just a few years, pro-abortion zealots went from safe, legal, and rare to keep the newborns comfortable while the doctor debates infanticide. I don't care what party you're from. If you can't say that it's wrong to leave babies to die after birth, get the hell out of public office. And I stand 100% with Ben Sasse on that. If you are going to stand around and say, it's fine, just let the babies die, you have really no place to stand in office. You have really no grounds to be standing around and thinking that you're in any way a moral human being. And certainly the control that you have in our lives is certainly more control than what you are deserving of. Pardon me. But it's just, That entire topic. You guys know me. I'm pretty strongly on the pro-life of things. From the moment of conception, each person is their own individual person. Once you have a separate strand of DNA, you are your own individual. You are your own person, and your life should be protected by the government. If we're going to have a government, the government's role should be to protect the sovereignty of the people and the nation, and that certainly means that the individual rights should be saved. While we're talking about stupidity, immoral people, and everything else, I want to, if you guys haven't been following Howard Schultz, he was the CEO of Starbucks, and he's planning on running for president of the United States in 2020. He's getting a lot of backlash, much like what Gary Johnson and other libertarians get when they run. Because when they run, they're splintering votes from the Republicans. So if the Democrat wins, then it's obviously the Libertarian, the third party guy's fault. But when it comes to Howard Schultz, he's been a lifelong Democrat. He's been on the left, and that's been his life from the time he was born until now. And he's running as an independent. He's not even going to run as a Democrat. And he said, "Look, let me pull up the exact direct quote." But he said, "I'm not a Democrat. I don't affiliate myself with the Democratic Party who's so far left, who basically wants the government to take over our health care, which we cannot afford, the government to give free college to everybody, and the government to give everyone a job, which basically is $40 trillion on a balance sheet of $21.5 trillion. We cannot afford it. What we can do and what we need to do is comprehensive tax reform. What we need is sensible solutions to immigration. All of these things cannot happen under the current environment. Now I've also been criticized for being a billionaire. Let's talk about that. I'm self-made. I grew up in the projects of Brooklyn, New York. I thought that was the American dream, the aspirations of America. You're going to criticize me for being successful? Cue Michael Moore. Michael Moore coming in, the great socialist, the guy that says Venezuela is on the path to being the most prosperous and the nation that every single other nation in the world should start to trying to emulate. That's the nation, right? From Mr. Michael Moore. I don't know if he wants to go by Mrs. I know he's got some pretty big memes. But Michael Moore himself is saying Venezuela is the way to go. Now, him hearing the idea that Howard Schultz is self-made, he's got to talk about the socialism that enabled him to be as prosperous as what he is. So Michael Moore goes off and he says, "Look, you went to a subsidized school. Taxpayer dollars paid for this, so you're not self-made. You also use the water system that provided water from whatever place was creating the water or filtering the water, and that was being brought to your business. And so you're not self-made. The idea that you created a company, that you hired the labor, that you spent the capital in order to build up and install machinery in order to ensure that not only you could make revenue, but also that you would hire people to come in and they could make revenue and that they can provide a service or a good to the customers. And then you would just be able to keep doing this and become more successful and be able to take those and not only build in one city and one street, but build it across multiple times throughout big cities to build it across this nation, right? You don't get any credit for that because you went to a public school, because you went to something where it was subsidized by the taxpayer dollar. Therefore, you get none of the credit. Michael Moore would rather say that it's the socialism. It is the socialism that enabled the capitalism to be able to thrive and survive. And this is such a gross concept error. The idea that it's the socialism that enables people to be successful. That is not the laissez-faire. That is not the capitalism. That is not the free market. That is not the idea of free enterprise or even what we have here in this country of very limited or crony capitalism. That this doesn't enable people to be successful. And when they have good ideas, it's not the ideas of theirs that made them successful, but it's the society around them. This is the stupidity of Michael Moore. And he went on. He went on. So not only was that, did he want to take credit for what Mr. Schultz had done, but he also went after the billionaires. So much like what we've seen from Elizabeth Warren and from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where they've gone after the super wealthy, as they call them. Michael Moore showed the fact that he doesn't know what a billionaire is. So he's saying, look, you know, being a billionaire in this country is immoral. That's a fine premise to start off with if you don't understand how people become billionaires. But nonetheless, he continues on. He's like, look, if you make $900 million a year, that's fine. That's not immoral. Do you know how many people, do you know how much money it takes for somebody to become a billionaire? Does it take making $1 billion a year to become a billionaire? Absolutely not. You'll become a billionaire, obviously, in 1 year. But that doesn't make you a billionaire. There are thousands of millionaires in this country. Thousands of millionaires in this country who have never even crossed the $300,000 mark in a year. Why are they? How do they take all of this small amount of money comparatively and be able to build it up and to have these great stashes of wealth? Well, it's because that when people are more successful, they learn how to not only invest into their future, but they also learn how to save it for in the event of an obstacle or a hurdle. So Michael Moore is saying, look, you can have $900 million in a year. That's fine. Keep doing what you're going to do. It's okay. No problem there. You won't see any socialists coming after you. But as soon as you make $1 billion, as soon as you have $1 billion in wealth being accrued, you're suddenly an immoral person. And I guarantee you, anyone that's making $900 million in a year, they've got $1 billion already in wealth. So the guy doesn't understand anything. It's just so stupid to see somebody get so much airtime. And really what we're seeing from the media, from these late night talk show hosts, these attempted comedians that don't know what humor is, they just hit the people on the right and accept people on the left. What they're doing is they'll take on these crazy lefties, they'll take on the socialists, they'll take on the borderline communists, and they won't fact check them, they won't push back on them on anything that they say. And they're just like, oh, it's immoral to make more than $15 an hour. And they're like, absolutely, it's immoral for you to have more than $15 an hour. It's just disgusting. And it's just like, wait a minute, how much both of you guys making? You guys are making more than that? You guys are idiots. There's this level where everyone that is becoming successful, if you're on the left and you're successful, it is immoral for you to be that and for you to accept that. Welcome in, Todd Hadley from Arizona. It's just the media is just hand in hand with the Democrats and everything else. This is a huge issue. This is going to be a big scary point coming in our future. If we're not able to take this ship and steer it the right way and teach people economics and actually make it palpable and understandable for these people, we're not going to win. We're not going to win this, and it's going to go this way. And I got to bring up Representative Thomas Massie. I talk about him all the time, of course. House of Representatives from Kentucky. He actually put out a bill, and this bill is beautiful. Beautiful. It is 6 lines long. It is 6 lines long, and I will tell you that it would help change this problem that we were talking about with Michael Moore. It would help fix this problem from the get-go, and the longer away, if this bill was enacted, the longer we get away from this, the better off this nation would be. So I'm going to read you guys this bill in its entirety. Like I said, it's 6 lines long. It's not really 6 lines long. But it's in plain English so that nobody out there can question on if there's some misguidedness within it, if there's some other things that he's hiding within it. So the bill is subtitled to terminate the Department of Education. 1. By enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. Section 1. Termination of the Department of Education. line 5. The Department of Education shall terminate on December 31st, 2020. That is the entire bill. That is the entire bill. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous. It is what is so desperately needed in this country. Because once we get the federal government out of the out of the education, then it becomes a state issue. And certain states are better about being able to say, hey, look, maybe we need states' rights again. Maybe we need to actually teach the Constitution. Maybe we need to teach about individual liberties. Instead of having Common Core shoved down our throats, instead of having all these despicable decisions made from the centralized government, made from federal government, and push this down to where it becomes back to a state issue. And even the state issues, a lot of them will just relinquish this to the free market, allow the private schools, which do better 9 times out of 10 than the public school counterparts, allow them to thrive more, allow them to be more successful. And it's just going to be a benefit to all. But of course, I don't think this is going to be, if this is going to be to the benefit. Or not to the benefit. I don't think that this will be enacted because certainly nobody wants to agree with it. And I hope that you guys can also remember, if you guys go back to the 2016 campaign, one of the things that Donald Trump was talking about was actually getting rid of the Department of Education. And Betsy DeVos, right, when Betsy DeVos came in, not only was she in favor of school choice, but she was also in favor of minimizing the Department of Education. These were things that I was very hopeful for. These were things that I was very excited and I was elated that they were talking about doing this, and it's one of those things that it's for the betterment of the country if the federal government's not ruling over this. But, I should have covered this one a little bit ago. Darn it. But nonetheless, we'll get into this one. So, in the past, in the last video from Tuesday, we talked about how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wanted to impart a 70% marginal tax rate on people over $10 million. We talked about Elizabeth Warren wanting to impart or enact a law that if you made more than $50 million, or if you accrued over $50 million, you would give up 2% of your wealth every year. If you accrued more than $1 trillion of wealth, you would give up 3% of your wealth every year. Well, Bernie Sanders said, hey, guys, I see you guys are trying to run with the socialist scheme. Don't worry, boys. I've got you. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to burn this place down. Bernie Sanders proposes a state tax of up to 77% of billionaires. That's right, guys. You go ahead and collect up all that wealth over your lifetime. You'll give up, you're going to be giving up 2% every year. If Elizabeth Warren gets her way, you'll be paying a greater than 70% of your taxes will be taken away from you while you're trying to collect this up, and then you go ahead and die after you've been so heavily burdened by the taxation over your entirety of life. And then Bernie Sanders comes along and takes up 77%. 77%, more than 3/4 of your belongings, the things that you've accrued over your life, that you put your blood, sweat, and tears into in order to create for yourself, for your family, and that you, under the natural rights of private property, would be able to regulate or to delegate these things or to give away to people as you see fit. Whether you want to give it to your family members, you want to give it to your wife, your husband, you want to give it to your children, your grandchildren, or if you want to donate it to a charity, that should be on you, but not when Bernie Sanders, the Democratic Socialist, comes along. And he also wants to cut the estate tax exemption to $3.5 million. So Bernie Sanders, the guy who's planning to run for office once again, he had to make sure that he found his way to jump in and head the steamboat of how they're going to take away from the richest people here in this country in order to provide for what it is that they desire, and that is to pay for everything else, to have this redistribution of wealth, to have this strong social safety net that's supposed to be able to allow people to climb themselves out of it, which is logically bankrupt, right? The idea that you're going to give somebody more and they're going to go, I don't want to work off of these people, or I don't want to live off of these people. I want to provide in my own way. I'm going to get off this. No, of course not. But Bernie Sanders is out there trying to push the way. There was also, let me see if I can find that one as well. There was also another woman. She's not been getting any headway. She hasn't been getting really any media coverage. If my wife is watching, come bring me a water, please. And so this woman, she comes along and she was like, all right, I'm going to run for office. I'm going to run for the presidency. And she sees the way that everyone's trying to take more. And she's like, you guys aren't giving out enough. You guys aren't putting enough back into society. So what she is planning to do, what she wants to do is take that. Here it is. Which, let me pull up her name, because I want you guys to know who she is. But she plans on doing $10 billion every year for 10 years. So $100 billion this woman is planning on spending to provide as reparations for the atrocities of old, to hold people of today accountable for the actions of people before now. Even though right now we have a governor from Virginia who can apologize for something just a mere couple decades ago, and it's okay for him to apologize. But nonetheless, all of you people within society, you got to pay for the actions of old. You can't just apologize your way away from this. You cannot simply just say you're sorry. It doesn't matter how heartfelt it feels. It doesn't matter how honest you are. It doesn't matter if you were not, your family lineage doesn't even run through that time. If you came here after the fact, I'm sorry, you live here in America, you've got to pay a part of this $10 billion a year. So don't try and fight it, guys, because if you fight the government on taking your taxes, you know what happens. It's just, Marianne Williamson. That's the woman's name. So she calls for $100 billion in reparations for slavery. It's just, I can't believe that we can apologize for the things that we've done and it's acceptable, but we can't apologize for the things that other people do. But we have to make the payment. These reparation claims are they're missing out on the logic. They're just as logical as Michael Moore and his railings against capitalism. It just doesn't hold up at all. So Bernie Sanders, you can go on, keep on. People can keep feeling that burn, because economic books are something that just burns your hands when you touch them, right? Everyone remembers that Babylon Bee book or post. When Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders touches a book, an economics book, their hands burn. I'm not going to cover that one. While we're talking about apologies, while we are talking about the big apologies, one thing that we talked about quite a bit, and we've been covering, is the Elizabeth Warren. So we covered her in her socialist takings of every year, which has been... every country that has ever been put into, they also discarded it shortly thereafter, because it's just, you lose a lot more wealth than what you gain because they just move it to other countries. But Elizabeth Warren, of course, she's been the one of the big receivers of the big hits from President Trump, the Pocahontas remark. Well, she finally comes out months after she comes out with her DNA test that said that she's maybe 1/1024th Native American. She finally comes out and apologizes to the Cherokee Nation for being like, hey, I'm sorry, it's not really that much. I'm probably not Cherokee. My family, they were like me. They're just a bunch of liars. So sorry that I suck. Sorry. I made you guys a national news. You guys got syndicated. You guys got some good publicity. You guys were honest. I was the piece of crap. I'm sorry. But she apologized, so we can all move on with our life. She has the D next to her name, which means that any apology she makes, it obviously is heartfelt. It's true. It's honest, and she would never do this again, despite doing it for the last 4 years. So it's It's just funny. I love seeing the hypocrisy of lefties, of the standards never being held to the same, depending on if you have an R versus a D on your name. I hold everyone accountable. If you're a Republican, I'm gonna hold you just as accountable. If you're a Democrat, I'm gonna hold you just as accountable. If you're a Green Party, and even if you're a Libertarian, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you're going to. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do. I'm going to hold you to the same accountability, and I hope that everyone here would do the same. All right, that's the Michael Moore one. Let's get rid of that one. All right, quick one, real quick, and then we got two more, and then I'll open up the phone lines for you guys. Why do Dems love radical socialists like Bernie and Ocasio-Cortez? The reason why that they like this, and I'll go off on this before I read the next article, the reason why they like them so much is because it's, hey, you want free stuff? You want free stuff? I will give you free stuff. You know how many people say, I don't want the free stuff that you're going to give me? How many people do you think honestly don't want free stuff given to them? Everybody wants free stuff. It's the people that look past just that free stuff, that look. Actually, this is a perfect segue in for one of the other articles. That can look past the free stuff and understand where that free stuff is coming from, and understand the immorality that's there. They understand that the fact that the higher taxes means that more people are going to have a higher burden, and having a higher burden means that they're going to be at a more disadvantage of being able to survive in a hard and reckless world that we live in. It's going to be more difficult for them to provide for their wife, for their husband, for their kids, whoever it is. It's going to be more difficult for them, and so therefore, I don't want to have this happen. I don't want to have more taxation. I want to hold you accountable. No. Who is John Galt? Yes. There's an Aaron Rand reader. He should have a beard. So that's the basis behind the Bernie Sanders bro, the socialist movement, is the idea that we're going to provide to people. You no longer have to be compassionate. You no longer have to be giving, because the government's going to do that for you. They're going to have the monopoly on it and everything else. But like I was saying, when you see that free stuff, you're like, oh, all right, I can get on board with this, right? A lot of people get behind on the free stuff, whether it's free social or free healthcare, free education, universal basic income, or increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour in New York. Now, some New Yorkers, this is from The Blaze, so hate me for reading a right news article, whatever. Some New Yorkers are not happy that the $15 minimum wage has increased food prices. What do you mean that the employees are getting paid more, and that has resulted in the cost of the services and goods that they provide to raise up in wages? How dare you? How dare you businesses, you dirty capitalist systems that are trying to ensure that they have enough revenue in order to pay their employees, and possibly have enough in order to pay all of their employees, and still have enough of a revenue coming in to ensure that they can replace equipment as needed to be able to provide for the leases and to provide for everything else that they need in order to continue functioning. How dare them? And you know what's happening? You know what's happening when these people are so upset, when they're so distraught over the idea that $15 an hour minimum wage is not enough because the other cost of living rises up with it, and actually rises up a little bit faster? When you see that happen, do you think that there's enough people out there with the honesty that are going to look at this situation and go, maybe we shouldn't ask for more minimum wage. Maybe we should ask for less minimum wage. Maybe we should ask that the minimum wage doesn't continue to grow. No. These people are going to ask for more minimum wage. They're going to say $15 isn't enough, right? We covered the New York Times article, or the Washington Post article from 2 weeks ago. When $15 wasn't enough. They said, all right, let's go $33 an hour. Let's go to $33 an hour. We need to be able to pay for this stuff. It's the stupidity of not figuring out why it is the cause and effects happen. And this is truly going to be one of the reasons why America fails eventually. It truly is, right? When you have people like that. Our nation was founded upon this idea. Our nation was founded upon this idea, right? When we started, what did we start from? We started and we had a monarchy system, right? King George ruled over us, and we said, hey, we don't like this. We don't like this. We don't like this monarchy. He's got too much control. He's taking away things from us, and he's not providing us for this stuff. Like, I'm trading from this person to this person, and he's taking 2%. He's taking 3%. It's not acceptable. I don't like this. And I'm not a fan of this monarchy system. So we're going to have a revolutionary war. We're going to fight against Europe. Or not against Europe, but we're going to fight against England. We're going to become sovereign. We're going to become free. We're going to be our own nation. And then what did we have? We had people like Alexander Hamilton saying, you know what we need? We need to replace that monarchy with another monarchy. What we need to have is another person that is unregulated, that is uncontrolled, that has control, complete and utter control over the people in the way that they see fit. So even then, right, in the founding, this is one of the human conditions, is that people are so short-sighted. People are so quick to live off the feelings rather than the logic of things, that they go, maybe we could just do it again and we'll get a different result. You want another common day instance of this? Look at France. In France, what we've seen was that the people said this socialism is unacceptable. The government is taking too much from us. Our working conditions are not good enough. We're not getting paid enough. We aren't able to live the life that we want to. And we all cheered on as these yellow jackets were literally fighting against their state, against their captors, against the people cracking the whip against them. They were fighting against them. And we were like, yes, France is fighting for liberty. France is fighting to become liberated, to become free, to fight against all the control and the socialism and the safety nets that they have. And you know what they did? Do you know what those organizers within the Yellow Jackets did? They said, we don't like your socialism. We want you to impart this socialism. We want you to do this. There's this level of cognitive dissonance. There's just this level of cognitive dissonance, and we got to figure out a way how to get people away from this. We have to 100% get people away from this. It's not to our benefit. 100, bro, calm, simmer your tits, man. So. Yes, in New York, they're saying $15 minimum wage has caused the inflation and the cost of living to go up. And so now we got to raise the minimum wage again. You can't force people to be smart. You can't fix stupid. And there's just no fixing this. For you gun control advocates out there, for you lovers of guns, much like myself, South Dakota has become the latest state to remove permits requiring for gun owners to carry and conceal their weapons. The state's new Republican Governor Kristi Noem signed SB 47 into law Thursday. The legislation permits residents to legally carry a firearm concealed on their person so long as they are allowed to possess one. It passed the Senate by 23-11 and the House by a vote of 47-23. So the new law reflects the vision of the Founding Fathers to protect Second Amendment gun rights. Absolutely agree with that. I agree with that notion. I know that here in South Carolina, we are trying to work with the legislative branch in order to get this enacted here. Constitutional carry is the only way that you can have constitutional carry, or to have the constitutional Second Amendment be adhered to, right? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That means that if you have an arm, if you have armaments, if you have a firearm, you should be able to keep and bear your arms. That is important. Politicians are in. That's cute. As a future politician, Septra, I would simmer down on hating on all the politicians. Hey, baby, I see you're in the scope right now. If you want to, I would appreciate it if you would bring me a glass of water. Thank you. It's getting hot in here. I gotta figure out how to get this temperature regulated in here. It's not very good. Nonetheless, so civil asset forfeiture. Civil asset forfeiture is something that I've been railing against. It's something that I was really upset with Jeff Sessions, who's loved every bit of civil asset forfeiture. He advocates for it. He loves it. It's a way that the state, the federal government, that state as well, is able to gain property, to gain wealth, and it doesn't often require.
Aren't you glad I pay attention to you sometimes?
Come on. Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
You bunghole. Love you.
Love you too.
Oh, so much better. So civil asset forfeiture, they basically take away your property. They'll take away your vehicles. They'll take away whatever it is that they decide. And sometimes they'll charge you, sometimes they won't. But you have to fight nonetheless to get this stuff back. And so South Carolina, this is another recent article from the 29th. South Carolina police hauled in $17 million through civil asset forfeiture over 3 years. The news outlet scoured roughly 32,000 civil asset forfeiture cases across South Carolina, and the results said yielded a clear picture of what is happening. Police are systemically seizing cash and property, many times from people who aren't guilty of a crime, netting millions of dollars each year. Nearly a fifth of the 4,000 people who had their property seized by South Carolina police between 2014 and 2016 were never arrested nor ever charged with a related crime. One of the things that we've talked about in the past on this is that you would actually have, there was one situation where an older couple in their 60s were going to go buy a camper. And so they had with them cash to pay for this camper, and they drove along the highway, and they went, they were on their way to go pick this up, and while transiting on the way there, they get pulled over, and the police officers noticed that they had a large amount of cash on them. Do you know what the police did? They confiscated that money, and they said, look, it's too much money for an average person to have, and if you have money on you, then obviously you're involved with drugs, you're obviously being involved in the black market in some way. And so they took this away from you. And when they took it away from you, them, they had to go to court and pay a lawyer to fight to get their money back. Now, they got their money back, but the money that they paid for their lawyers, they didn't get back. So civil asset forfeiture means that you are just inherently giving money away in order to get your value back, and it's truly disgusting. $17 million over 3 years, and a fifth of those were people that were never charged and never arrested. So recently, what happened? Isaiah Kinlock of North Charleston resident. He was hospitalized for a head injury after fighting off a robber. The police searched his apartment and found an ounce of marijuana and $1,800 in cash. Kinlock used the marijuana to manage pain resulting from a severe car accident and said that the cash was from his work as a tattoo artist and cobbler. He was charged with possession with intent to distribute, but the charges were eventually dropped. Kinlock's cash, however, was forfeited. Amazing. So you're getting robbed. You're getting robbed in your house. And you fight off the robber. And then the police come in. They find out that you had that bad old devil's lettuce, that marijuana, trying to kill people out here. And then they find out that you have money in your house. How dare you have money in your house? And so they collect it and keep it. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You have to be so indoctrinated to believe that this is the way that a police force that is there to protect and serve you, that they're acting in the best interest. It's not. It's in no way. It's a clear violation of your fourth. It's a clear violation of your fifth. It's a clear violation of your eighth. And these police officers all swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. But nonetheless, guys, I want to read this article from you guys from the Unbiased America. You guys are free to call in while I go through this one. We got about 10 minutes left of the show. So if you guys want to call in, talk about anything that we've covered so far, or if you guys want to bring up your own topic, feel free to call in on that. But this was started from Katie Tur. So Katie Tur from MSNBC. She said that the middle class is disappearing. And Unbiased America says, fact check, true. They're not disappearing into the poverty class like what Katie Tur says, but they're disappearing into the upper class. The socialist surge among Democrats is almost completely based upon the narrative that the middle class in America is struggling. The media doesn't even question the premise anymore. Just yesterday, MSNBC anchor Katie Tur boldly declared that there was almost no middle class in America. You have this, to quote her, you have this class of people who have more wealth than everybody else combined and almost no middle class any longer. And people who have hold no money whatsoever are basically living on the poverty line. The reality, Tur would likely be surprised to learn, is that the middle and lower classes aren't shrinking because of becoming poorer, but because they're moving into higher income brackets. The share of American households earning $100,000 or more per year, adjusted for inflation, increased from 9.1% in 1967 to 29.2% in 2017. And for the first time ever, the number of households making over $100,000 a year exceeds the number of households making less than $50,000. In other words, if Democrats want to increase the size of the middle class, they're going to have to bring families down from the upper classes by making them poorer again. Talk about making America great again. We'll just take all of your money and we'll throw it at people who don't make good money or make good financial decisions. And that's the way it's going to go, guys. I don't know why you guys are so upset about this. I don't know why you would oppose us trying to take your freedom and give it to other people. So I'm glad to see that's been going through. One more last quick little note that I did miss. Sad that I did. But if you guys noticed, President Trump, if you guys been following the stuff that's been going on in Afghanistan and the Middle East, President Trump was like, hey, I want to pull out of Afghanistan. Well, the Senate made a vote. And so I want to, Brian Krasenstein, him and his brother are both jokes, absolutely. But they, of course, President Trump's tweets at something, they have to tweet at him. And so the response was, boom! The Republican Senate has broken with Trump in massive fashion, voting 68-23 against the quick Syria and Afghanistan troop withdrawal. Trump loses again. Now that first statement, that first word, that first exclamation of boom, this was him being so excited that more bombs are being dropped, that more innocent people are being killed. So if you ever wanted to know what happened to the anti-war left, they're not only happy to rip the babies from the mothers at the time of when the baby is trying to come out on its own, that is trying to escape the mother's womb and trying to come into this life. They're not only happy with taking that child and shredding it apart, ripping it limb from limb, crushing the skull and separating it, and then sometimes even illegally selling this for research and development. But they're also excited whenever the Senate steps in and prevents the president from pulling the troops because they want to see more children get hurt. They want to see more people in Syria and Afghanistan be hurt by the actions of not only of accidental discharge from our military, but by continuing on these conflicts. And it's truly despicable. I wish that the Democrats would finally come back to their anti-war roots. But, hoping that they become moral overnight is certainly not. You can wish in one hand and shit in the other. And I promise you, your hands are going to stink a lot quicker than anything else. But nonetheless, guys, Brian Krasenstein, him and his brother both, they're not good people. Let's just say that. They are not good people at all. Miss Kasha, Pat, welcome in. I know you guys have been here for a little while, but I appreciate you guys. If you guys want to call in, feel free to call in. The phone number is 802-671-5328. It's right there at the bottom of your screen. And it's okay. 100K a year is not middle class. I believe 100K is right at the cusp of higher middle class. I believe that's where it is. Top 1% is only like $250,000 a year in some states. $100,000 is, you're doing pretty well for yourself. But even the likes of Katie Tur, when she was talking about how the middle class doesn't exist anymore, her entire idea, her entire premise was the fact that during the government shutdown, right, During the government shutdown, so many of the families were already living paycheck to paycheck, therefore they were not middle class. And so there was this gross concept error where she's saying if you are living paycheck to paycheck, that determines that you're in poverty or that you're poor. And that is not that cannot be true. That cannot be true. Republicans drop bombs. So are you saying that Obama was a Republican? Because he was the bomber in chief. He was leading the charge on most bombs being dropped. Sorry, the facts hurt. But, so Katie Tur was saying that because people were living paycheck to paycheck, because the government shutdown had affected so many families so drastically because they couldn't afford their bills, that they could not have been middle class. And it's this level of not understanding, right? Middle class is based off of how much wealth you bring in, how much money you bring in, how much your income, your revenue is. And so if you're not making much, or if you're making whatever the ranges are, and I apologize for not having those statistics up, you could still be living paycheck to paycheck. You've been making a lot of money. Hey guys, make sure you guys are calling in using your number, not going private. Hey Mookie, welcome in. How's it going?
Great. I love listening to you. I'm a huge fan.
I appreciate it. How are you doing tonight?
So, for me, it's early in the morning. I'm in Asia.
Ooh.
Which is why I don't get to watch you as often as possible.
Well, I appreciate you for tuning in nonetheless.
Yeah. So, and I don't have self-control. If someone leaves their number up, I just, in general,
you're good.
Will call in.
You're good. What's on your mind, man?
But I think that I love how you cover a huge range of topics, and then I sit there in the comment section and I read that, and it feels that while you have a lot of supporters, it seems that some of these people are just not getting it. And I thought maybe a dialogue would help hammer out some of these issues.
Yeah, I mean,
one I thought.
Go ahead.
The one I thought was needed to be hammered on more was civil forfeitures. I think that's something that, what was it, Bobby 46?
Yep.
He's just spewing out just a lot of like, and one of the things he said is like, well, who cares? It's never going to change. And I'm like, did you listen to yourself before you typed out that comment? Did that go through your head before it got to the keyboard?
No.
Like, are you okay? It obviously changed. It wasn't a law before, and it's a law now that indicates a change. So to say that something is completely static is stupid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, to give you like a little frame of reference on who Bobby is on the left, I would say. He is a huge supporter of the state, and you have to understand like that, him coming from that, he may just say, look, that's the way it's always going to be, and that's because he does support the state in that way. Regardless of when he does go anti-cop, he goes, well, cops may be racist, but they're never going to change, and so that's okay. I don't want to fight against it. I don't want to advocate against it. He's got this level of cognitive dissonance, and that's fine for him to be like that. But he also makes it easy to have some information to hit him against. And so it's, I leave a lot of that low-hanging fruit for you guys in the comment section, and I hope you guys enjoy that.
I don't. It worries me that someone is so, like, you're like, it's okay. Mr. Bearded Truth is a much better person than me. My base reaction is, it's not okay for you not to be able to make those, like, connect those intellectual dots. Like, that's not okay.
Yeah, and so I think that
that's
certainly
not good for America.
Certainly, if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to keep broadcasting this stuff out, I can either go and I can target Bobby and just keep beating him over the head every day, or I can just continue to have a conversation. And if you guys try to hit on him and you guys can sway him, or if I could just keep telling him the truth of what's going on and hopefully bring him over to advocating against this. If I can advocate him over to our side over time, right? It's the long goal rather than the short goal. And certainly, right, I've got people like Bobby that are on the left, and that's fine. And I've got people like Hunter who just are weirdly obsessed with me. I'm not even going to block him. So it's just, we just let the quote unquote trolls or the people who fundamentally disagree just come in here, and hopefully over time we'll be able to make some changes.
Cortez really, again, you're a better person than me. Now, my argument for civil forfeiture, against civil forfeiture, is that I think it is a continuation of the government trying to track everything you do in an antithesis of freedom.
Yeah. No, yes. I mean, there is not a single bit of the Constitution that the government has not tried. I would say even the Third Amendment, really. I mean, there's not a single part of the Constitution in which has been protecting individual rights and liberties that the government has not tried to infringe upon. And certainly civil asset forfeiture has been one of those things that is not only they've been successful on, but they also have Supreme Court justices writing opinions to be able to defend them on doing such a thing, such an atrocity, where the state effectively can make a revenue out of thin air, right? Like from that article, a fifth of those 4,000 people were not even charged with a crime, but their assets were taken from them. And so,
even if they get their stuff back, the court system gets money from that processing on the other end anyway.
Yep.
But isn't that what the government does anyway? Isn't that what most taxes are? Like, oh shit, we need revenue.
That's exactly what they are. I mean,
wave our hand.
That's why Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are campaigning on trying to raise up the amount of revenue that they can get in, because they want to keep spending even more than what's being collected right now, and they're trying to find those ways. And the way that they're doing it is they don't want to be honest with people and say, look, this is not going to be enough in order to collect the revenue that we need. We're going to raise taxes on the middle class. We're going to raise taxes on the rich. We're going to raise taxes even on the poor, because it's the only way that we can pay for these things. So they make it more palpable by just saying, we're going to go after the extremely wealthy. We're going to go after the top 0.2% with Bernie Sanders. We're going to only go after the top 1% when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, or just after the people that make $10 million every year. That I think it was like the top 0.7% of wage earners in a year from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We're going to go after those people, because then people can get behind it, because there's this level of envy that we have as a society. And so they push that on you, and then once they get into office, they're like, haha, now I've got everybody. And it's really, people aren't looking at it all the way through.
And I think a good example of that is the original initiation of income taxes were only supposed to be on the quotations rich.
Yep. And they weren't,
I believe, 3 years.
And it wasn't even supposed to be permanent, really. It was supposed to just be in there just to help us get through the wars. It was...
And that's... Oh. Yeah, people forget that shit, and they don't want to look back on that like, well, how else would you solve the problem? It's like, well, by becoming a stronger individual. When people are saying that working on a government, it doesn't matter what money you make. People save money on any salary merely by, like, it's a simple formula.
Yeah.
If you spend less than you make, you will save money. The NFL, NBA, and baseball players show us all the time that you can make millions of dollars a year and go broke. My favorite example, MC Hammer. He made $33 million the year he declared bankruptcy.
Kanye West was just begging on Twitter.
Another great example.
Oh, yeah.
I've been out of pop culture for about 10 years. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good.
Another great example.
Real quick response for Troy the Legend. So he said, why do conservatives cry so much over taxes? I make $85,000 a year, and I don't cry. Lord, you people complain so much. So real quick on that, Troy. First off, I'm a libertarian, which means I'm against stealing, which is what taxation is. And that's fine. If you consent for paying your taxes, would you also consent to paying for my taxes? Because you obviously have a problem with me complaining. If you have a problem with me complaining, feel free to pay my taxes. I won't complain. I'll actually send you a letter. I'll send you a postcard. I'll send you whatever it is that you want. You just pay my taxes. I'll send you the bill. But nonetheless, I appreciate you for calling in, Mookie. Thank you for calling in. I know it's early in the morning for you. But thank you so much for calling. I hope you have a good night or a good morning, and I'm actually going to wrap up the show. So,
Awesome. I'll see you guys later.
all right. Appreciate it, man. Have a great night. All right, guys. And with that, I am going to be hopping off. Thank you guys for all coming in tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. You guys took some new insight on things. And I'll see you guys on Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. And while we're here, of course, Friday night means got to give you guys the spiel. I got to be the daddy of the group. Don't drink and drive or ride with those who do. You have family, friends who care about you and love you deeply. And they want you to get back here and be safe and see me back here on Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I am Mr. Merca, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. Be safe, be good. I'll see you guys then.